All right, today's date is October 21st, 2019. The time is approximately 10:40 hours. It's Investigator Blake, Investigator Ray, and Deputy Marshall in the Internal Affairs interview room in reference to IA case number 19-27212. Deputy Marshall, before I started the recorder, I had you read over the notification of administrative inquiry. Are those your initials?
Yes, sir.
And is that your signature?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any questions about the form?
Yes, sir.
And I'll advise that this time this is an ongoing internal affairs investigation, so you're not to speak about this with anybody outside of internal affairs. Before we started the recording, we went over the subject matter. It's in reference to inmate Kevil Wingo. You were the infirmary deputy on September the 29th when he was in the infirmary, and then he was moved to the extension about an hour and a half into your shift. Do you recall inmate Wingo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you tell me kind of tell me how that morning went, because it was pretty quick time with you and him there.
It was passed on that he had been disruptive all night, trying to get to the hospital. During my shift, he said that he needed to go to the hospital. He was screaming, "I can't breathe." And I was like, "Well, I know you're breathing because you're talking to me. You're screaming." I told the nurses, he's saying he can't breathe. And they said he was detoxing, he's fine. He just wants to go to the hospital. When I pulled out first appearance, he had come to the door. I don't remember the exact, but I know he was at the door. And I told him I would let the nurses know, which I did. And he was saying that he couldn't breathe. When I finished pulling out first appearance, the one guy was yelling at him because he was sitting or laying on his bed. When he started yelling, he got up. So I went and pulled him out. At one point, he was in the shower. He said he fell. I don't know. I didn't see any of that. I called him out, and he came out. He was sitting in the chair, and I had Sergeant Gordon on his way over. By the time he was out of the cell, Sergeant Gordon was coming. We sat him in a chair. He stood up. He tried to pull the stretcher that's in the infirmary. He stood up and tried to pull it, but it was locked, so he couldn't. So he pulled his chair up to it and laid his head down. He said he was tired, and I was like, "You left a perfectly good bed." I don't understand what if you get in your bed, not somebody else's. You had a bed. Sergeant Gordon backed him up, told him, and said, "Just sit still while they were figuring out what to do with him." The nurses were like, "He just wants to go to the hospital, just close locks him." My close ops rooms were full, completely. I think I had 5 in each close ops room that day. I think, I can't swear to that. So they were trying to figure out what to do with him. Sergeant Gordon had me call Major. Major ended up coming over. And he had pulled himself back up to the chair. He did that like 2, maybe 3 times. And Sergeant Gordon was like, "Do not do that again. Just sit still." So when he started screaming and hollering, they were like, "We'll just put him over in the pad and watch him and see what's going on." I think he handcuffed him. I had asked me to give him a smock and a blanket, and he walked mostly to the wheelchair because they were going to take him over. And it looked like his knees kind of buckled when he got over there, and they turned him around, sat him down, and that's the last I saw him.
Okay. So when you say you started your shift and it got passed on to you that he was
Disruptive.
disruptive. Do you remember who passed that on to you?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, no. It was the deputy, whoever it was.
So Deputy McPhee was the night shift.
Okay, the night.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't.
I understand. He said he just started working down there. So Deputy McPhee passed on to you that he had been disruptive. Do you remember exactly what he said?
No, other than he had been disruptive. He had been hollering and screaming and insisting that he needed to go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That was. And when I talked to the nurses, that's the same thing they kept saying is he just wants to go to the hospital.
Okay.
So.
And so during the morning, it sounds like you had a couple of dealings with him when you were pulling out first appearance and such, and you said you reported to the nurse. What nurse did you tell that, like, hey, he's saying he needs to go to the hospital?
Well, they all heard me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said that he's saying he can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Annalene said he just wants to go to the hospital. he'll be okay. She was the one that said to put him on close ops.
And Annalene, just for clarity, that's Nurse Visser?
Visser, yes.
Charge
Visser.
nurse, right?
Correct.
Okay, so she's kind of the one who runs things when the doctor's not there, is the charge nurse?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, keep going.
But yeah, there was, I don't even remember who else was there. But like I said, I do remember she was sitting over there. It was her day to work. She was over there. And she said, just put him on close ops because he's just, he's fine. He just wants to go to the hospital.
Okay. And that was what she stated, was that he's just detoxing?
She said he was detoxing. He's getting his detox meds. He had been there a week before maybe? Or, okay, it's hard with my shifts, the way they are 2 on. But he had been there previously and got discharged from detoxing. So I don't know. If he was detoxing, I think he got something up there, or he had something that they didn't find.
Right.
Because he was worse off then than he was the first time around.
Okay, so you were the day shift in the infirmary back when
He was there the first time.
2 days prior, or
Whatever it was. I mean, like, it was like my week before,
I follow you. Your last little rotation. I know.
He was down there once before, detoxing, and he went upstairs. And he seemed better the first time he went upstairs than he did that time.
Okay.
I think I had even said that he had gotten something up there, or he had something that he took, or took somebody's meds or something.
Right.
He just was, like I said, he was detoxing again, or so it appeared.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm not a doctor.
So when you called Sergeant Gordon down, what'd you tell him initially?
Well, I said we have one. They passed it on. I told him that they had passed on. He had been disruptive, and he's screaming and hollering. The inmates in the cell block had said that he was getting into their stuff. I don't know. The one guy said he had been that I pulled for first appearance said he had been screaming all night, and they didn't get any sleep. Which there again, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right.
So I asked if we could put him somewhere else, and I told him that Annalene had said that they could close ops him, but my rooms are full, so I didn't know where else to put him.
Okay. So when Sergeant Gordon came down, he came down with the knowledge that this was an inmate who was kind of being non-compliant, and
right.
he was being a problem.
Yes.
Okay. And so I believe you described that when he was sitting in the chair, you said he pulled his chair over to lean his head up against the stretcher.
No, he was sitting, like was sitting in one of the blue chairs or pink, whatever color it was, but he was sitting in one of the inmate chairs. And he stood up and tried to pull the stretcher. And then when that wouldn't work, he turned his chair and pulled it up to the stretcher, and he just laid his, like
Right.
head on his arms on the stretcher. Like he was tired and wanted to take a nap.
And then he did that after he was told not to. He did it 2 more times? Is that what you mean?
I think it was 3 times. I know for a fact twice.
Okay.
I think it was a 3rd time because that's when he was like, don't do that again. But yeah, I can't, like I said, it's, wow, I don't remember. But it was at least twice.
Okay.
Maybe a 3rd time.
Okay. And I know from listening to phone calls, you talked to Major Harris, you expressed to him that you had one open cell, but it was away. It was 14, I think, and you said, hey, I don't want to put him down there because I can't keep my eye on him.
I can't keep an eye on him if he's detoxing.
Right.
They need to be where you can see them because detox can have issues.
Right. And so that's why you suggested the pad was so he could be monitored and watched,
Yes.
just in case. Okay. Ray, you got anything?
Yes, you made the comment he was screaming and hollering. You remember what he was screaming and hollering, what he was saying?
When he yelled at me, or he was yelling in the subblock, he said, I need to go to the hospital. I can't breathe. And I talked to him for a minute, and I was like, but if you're hollering, you are breathing. I said, what seems to be the problem? I said, is it, and he was just like, I'm like, is it hard to breathe? Is it, he couldn't describe. So I told them, and I told him, he's saying he can't breathe. And that he needs to go to the hospital. And then they said that's what he wants. He just wants to go to the hospital.
Did anybody physically go check on him in your presence?
The nurses?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
And
No, sir.
in your opinion, you think they thought maybe he was putting on, or he wasn't serious, or he just wanted to get away from the jail for a minute? He wasn't really in pain?
That was my impression. Because like I said, when it got passed on, that's what everyone was just like, he just wants to go to the hospital.
When you say that was your impression, was that your physical opinion, your personal opinion, or was that your opinion of the nurses, the way they felt?
I don't know. I'm there again. Some of these folks, if they have to go, sometimes I think they send them out frequently that don't need to go, but if they need to go, then they need to go. That's not my decision to make.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay. Is there anything else you can think of? Obviously, you see what we're asking is the interactions in the infirmary. Is there anything else you can think of that morning that would have stood out to you as far as inmate Wingo and his behavior, the nurse's behavior, anything like that?
The nurses didn't really deal with him.
Did they do the morning blood pressure? Do they do blood pressure checks in the morning on your shift?
Mhm.
Did they do that with him before he left?
They did not check no, not before he left.
Okay. Had you already done them, or had they just not happened yet? Because I know that was like 7:20, 7:30.
They had not done them yet, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Okay.
And I want to say somebody, and I honestly don't remember, but in the back of my mind, I want to say one of the nurses asked if they wanted to check him before he went over, like get his vitals before he went over. And they were like, he'll be okay. And I honestly don't know who, but in the back of my mind, I remember hearing somebody said that. Or maybe it was, one of them. Somebody asked if they needed to. I don't remember, I'm sorry. I
All right.
can't swear to that, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay. Ray, you got anything else?
No, sir.
Anything else you can think of?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. I will end the interview. The time is 10:52 hours.